First and foremost, before we get started, I like to give all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rekah Kwadash, and double honors to those great millstone, while lunch is truth, and also to those elect that is scattered abroad. I like to say, Shalom. Come back here today with another great and powerful lesson through the spirit and the power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. And the type of day lesson is, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. So I like to say shalom to all our listeners and learners. Hope this will help you today and guide you back in the path of righteousness and back to your true power, which in fact is Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. So before we start the daily lesson, I have a quick news article here by NPR, and it reads, it said, white South Afrikaners refugees arrive in U.S. on a government chartered plane. So this was dated May the 12th, which in fact is today. So they arrived today. Let's get a little bit more. It said Johannesburg, South Africa, a group of 59 white Afrikaners who have been given refugee status by Trump administration arrived at Dooley Airport outside Washington, D.C. on Monday on a charter flight paid for by the U.S. government. The Afrikaners, descendants of mainly Dutch colonists, said left Johannesburg on Sunday night. They were seen at the airport in Johannesburg with carts full of suitcases, but declined to speak to the media. They are being greeted by U.S. officials and are expected to give a news conference shortly. So they said it was 59 white South African Afrikaners. So you go that that word Afrikaners is going into these what you call these Dutch descendants that's coming from like the Netherlands. I think Holland and other places that's I know it include the Netherlands. So they came back. I think it was the 1700s. And they came to South Africa, which in fact they said they came and colonized the land, the colonizers. You understand what I'm saying? You already know what Esau do. They come and rob peoples of their resources. You know what I'm saying? Set up their own puppet government. Also, they name the land after themselves. So we already know the playbook right here. So we're seeing now that he's bringing South Africans, so-called white South Africans to America. Why is he doing this? That's why I named the day's title, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. So, they go left and right and saying that the so-called black people, the Latinos and the Navy, and they always saying that we are the minority, but really, which in fact we are the majority. They are the minority, and we already knowing about they have low birth rate. Also, that they don't live long. They have a short lifespan, which in fact by the time they hit 30, they're getting ready to kick the bucket. And one thing about it, they age very quickly. By the time they hit 20, they look like they are damn near 40. You know what I'm saying? So, the Lord is constantly, is making them very small. The Lord is constantly exposing Esau, Edom. So we see it right here. This is another device that he's using, to make America white. So we understand what they're doing. They are constantly sending all the so-called people of color out of America, and they bringing in so-called white people. You already know about these South African, remember about apartheid, how they was. These people are very racist that they're bringing in, but guess what? They're in for a rude awakening. This is all through the spirit and the power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. The Lord said he would fill your lands like caterpillars, you know what I'm saying? So all sorts of different nationalities, all sorts of people are going to fill this place up because the Lord is setting it up for for destruction. So that's where we at right now. So this, DJ Donald Trump, trying to make America great again, so make America white. You know what I'm saying? And one thing about it, he is constantly imagining a vain thing. He's in for a rude awakening. So I see a little bit more of it. It says here, it said one document seen by NPR said there would be food and items for the children upon arrival. It said the refugees service office of the Catholic Diocese of Virginia would be on site to offer assistance. After the press conference, said the families will depart for their end destinations. So in several states, including Minnesota, Nevada, and Idaho. So see, they already got places already set up for them. So we already know when these so-called migrants that they brought, they put them in hotel. They ain't not even telling you really, they just telling you the states that they're going to. They're not giving you much detail. And also, they didn't even have to have a visa or no type of document to show that there was citizens of South Africa. You know, we kind of see how this is going. So they're constantly want to take the people, brown people, out and bring in these so-called white people, which is no such thing as white. That's a social construct, and no such thing as black. You know, these are made up social constructs. But one thing about it, through spirit and the power of Yahweh, Shai, you know, you can receive this message. And one thing about it, we dealing with different shades of red and different shades of brown. But that's a whole nother story. But so we seeing right now that TJ Donald Trump, but you know, it said it's 59 so-called white South African Afrikaners, you know what I'm saying, which in fact are Dutch settlers that settled in South Africa back in the 1700s. You know, when you do your history on, that's where that word Afrikaner come from. They always changing their name. You know what I'm saying? There's that fugitive and that vagabond constantly trying to disguise itself. But we already know, and pretty much all these nations around the world pretty much know who is the devil that the Bible speaks of. So right now, this man is, you know, is doing this, you know, trying to put out all the people of color and bring in the so-called white people, you know, trying to, he tried to his inward thought that he will rule forever. So I'm kind of laughing because I already know that, you know, it's not going to make a heel of a being. You're getting ready to be cut off. You're getting ready to be totally destroyed. You're getting ready to go into slavery. We cannot wait. What was done to us is getting ready to be done to you. You cannot run from justice. You know, justice is coming. You know, the fugitive and the vagabond. You know what I'm saying? You cannot run. You cannot hide. No one is going to escape the hands of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua. You can fill America with all sorts of so-called white people, which in fact they're not white, they're red. You can fill them with all these red people. Genesis chapter 25, Edom, Esau, Edom. It does not really matter. Your judgment is upon you. You know what I'm saying? Judgment is now at hand. The Lord is getting ready to bring forth that judgment like we have never seen before. Let's get a little bit more of this. It says here, it said, South Africans will now have a pathway to U.S. citizenship. You see that? We already know that was there. It said, and be eligible for government benefit. So, you know, this is the setup. See how they did these migrants that came from South America, Mexico, and different other parts. Now they setting them up, you know, very quickly. No wait time. It's right there. So this is the plan. Has this been engineered? Has this been manufactured? We're not ignorant of Satan's devices, but it's all through the spirit and power. Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua said another document seen by NPR included detailed guidance for the South African arriving, said American family members of Afrikaners granted refugee status, which could said status would be asked to help them. Said those who didn't have family in the country would be placed in a location, not hotel, that has a local organization to provide you with support. It says here your case manager will pick you up from the airport, saying you and said take you to housing that they have arranged for you. this housing may be temporary, like a hotel. See, like a hotel. But they're not putting these people in a hotel. These people gonna probably be in a gated community. You know what I'm saying? But see, one thing about it is that we already know that they'll play. So you already know how they crammed all those so-called migrants into those hotels and giving them these debit cards. And also they have debit cards also, but they're not going to mention that. So we already knowing how this is going. It says here, the housing may be temporary like a hotel. So they saying it's like a hotel, but they putting these people in like a gated community like that. What you call them? I can't think what they call them, but a lot of people go there when they have a vacation. So, you know, they're going to be set up. He said, while a local organization helps you identify more long-term housing, it said the South Africans are also informed you are expected to support yourself quickly in finding work. So those are expected. That's bullshit right there. So we already know that's all we're gonna get of this. But we're seeing right now that DJ Donald Trump is trying to fill America, Babylon the Great, with so-called racist white people, you know, or red people, you know. And one thing about this man is, you know what I'm saying, is trying to want that total control. And one thing about it, you know, we're seeing that old ancient hatred is coming back once again, which in fact has never left. You know, they just sugarcoated it. But now we're seeing that, it's getting ready, it's coming down to the wire. Jacob and Esau, where it all begun. You know what I'm saying? The struggle in Rebecca's room is about to get the struggle in Rebecca's womb, Salakia. And one thing about it, it's about to get real. So that's where we at right now. So, you know, we already seeing rumors talking about this new deal if they suspend this habeas corpus bill, you know, that will allow the police to do whatever they want, whenever they want. You know what I'm saying? So your rights are slowly being taken away from you, and they're replacing you with the so-called South Africans, you know what I'm saying, which in fact are red peoples, you know what I'm saying, from, you know what I'm saying, Esau, Edoms, these Edomites. So now let's go here and get a quick preset. I done talked enough. Let's get this right here, the title of the day lesson. You know, I got a low battery here. I'm gonna try to get a little bit of this out. It's gonna be kind of short because of my low battery output. It says here, it's Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 2 said, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. So one thing about it, we seeing right now they have low birth rate. You know, it's also, you know, have a short lifespan. The Lord is calling these things to happen. The Lord has made him very small among the heathen, and thou art greatly despised. So exactly, all these nations get ready to what? Turn on what Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, the red man of Genesis chapter 25. Don't matter where they come from around the world. You know, it's different tribes. And out about, we already know the head tribe of Esau, Edom is Amalek. You know what I'm saying? One thing about it, you know, we already knowing that, you know, the Lord is constantly exposing. The Lord is constantly shedding light on these wicked red devils. Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 2 said, the Lord says to Edom, I will cut you down to size among the nations, and you will be greatly despised. So that's exactly what's happening right now. They are greatly despised, and these nations is getting ready to rise up against them. You know what I'm saying? In every hand of the wicked, all the labor, the one that was in confederate with them, are getting ready to turn against you, because we constantly seeing these alliances. Everyone is done with America, even though they're having a 90-day pause on these tariffs. But it does not really matter. It's not going to change prophecy. Things are getting ready to happen. All hell is getting ready to break loose. So now let's start today's video, and after today's video we'll start the lesson, and I hope that you will get edified.
Well, I have got some hot tea in the brew for you, baby. Now grab your cup and pull on up, because we're about to break it down expeditiously. If you remember last week, I did a video called A Lesson is in Session. As a matter of fact, I think it was Saturday, just like today, but just a week back. Either way, in that video, I broke down their real plans, you know, the white man, and how he's so very terrified that there's not enough white here on his side. Yes, it just so happens on Monday, we're getting a whole plane load of white into town from out of town. Yes, they told you the mass deportations that we were doing to get rid of the brown had nothing to do with them being brown, but it had to do with the fact that they were all criminals, violent, in fact. And then they started deporting grandmothers and grandfathers and even babies and 2-year-olds too. I wonder what a 2-year-old could have possibly done to you. But either way, back in February, he pulled out his Sharpie one night. He signed an executive order to put some whites on a flight. And Monday is that day. Here's some receipts for you because this story is absolutely true. The Trump administration is chartering a plane to bring the first white South Africans to the USA as refugees, baby. Like I said on Monday, I do believe to Dallas is where they will be flying in on their flight. All you gotta be is white. Yes, tell me again how it's all about violent criminals and has nothing to do with their skin color, my friends. Even though we're deporting 2-year-old children today, even kids with cancer have to get on a plane and depart out of our way. Yes, I don't want to hear another Republican, a Republicant, and a Republicant come at me and try to pull some it's not racial stunt. And by the way, y'all remember that little rumor that was about Alonia Muskrat over there in Texas building a little city? Yes, all the MAGA were getting excited. They thought they were going to be able to move to Alonia's new city that was being built with homes and even schools. Well, apparently, boo, that city wasn't built for you, but for more South African immigrants that are white, like Alonia Muskrat. Oh well. I guess they're doing more for whites that don't live here than they're actually doing for whites that live here, as they're stripping your rights of due process away from you. But the brown can't stay around. And by the way, if you are in South Africa today and you think you're going to board that plane and come over here and everything's going to be fine, honey, you are insane. Don't believe that lie. You will still be outnumbered here if you just so happens to think it's okay to hate the black and brown deer.
If it ain't white, it ain't right. Should be this administration's new motto, seeing that the Trump administration will be taking on white South African refugees. Now, mind you, Trump had put an end to the refugee program, stating that America can no longer house migrants from other countries. But what he really meant to say was America can no longer house migrants who aren't white. The South African government even came out to tell Trump that these migrants haven't been vetted in any way whatsoever, so they don't know if they're criminals or not. Also, these are people who are wholly in support of apartheid, mass segregations. And normally programs like this require the migrants being brought over to be able to pay back the money spent to charter a plane to bring them over. But no, Trump is suspending all of that and using taxpayer dollars, your money, to bring these people over here. And once these people arrive into our country, they will be aided into assimilated into our country to become citizens. All of this is an effort to increase the white population. And mind you, he could have used this same level of energy to help out the current migrants in this country, but no. See, because they're not white, they're not right. This is the Project 2025 playbook in full force. From trying to get rid of due process to trying to get Americans, white Americans, to have more babies. This is the play, ultimately. How do we increase the white population in this country? How do we make sure that we are not the marginalized group anymore? Like I said, if it ain't white, it ain't right. If it's brown or black, send them back. This has always been the game plan of this administration, and you can't tell me any different.
In case you're wondering whether there's any racism in the Trump administration, consider this wild fact. So you know how they've basically stopped anybody from coming to the United States claiming refugee status? Well, they've decided to put an asterisk on that, and they're going to allow 8,000 South African Afrikaners to come here as refugees. Those are white people, by the way. So why are the white South Africans allowed to be classified as refugees and come to the United States, but a refugee from El Salvador is not allowed to, or a refugee from Panama, or a refugee from Peru? Why aren't they allowed? Well, I'll give you it's one thing. They're brown. Those South Africans are white. There is very little evidence that these Afrikaners are being persecuted at home. The government's saying, we're not doing anything. No one else seems to be able to confirm that fact. Yet the Trump administration is going to leapfrog those 8,000 Afrikaners into the United States in front of everybody else. Now, I would assume that all of the Trump supporters who are against all refugees coming to the United States are going to be outraged about this, right? Right?
So now let's start today's video. Today's lesson, and and I hope that you will get edified. So let's go here. I ain't got much juice left. Let's get a little few of these Salakia. Let's go here to Psalms chapter 49. Let's get a few, and then we'll shut it down because I'm already in the red. But hey, we're gonna hope and do the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Abishai that my batteries stay up. It says here, Psalm chapter 49 and verse 11 says, their inward thoughts is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generation. They call their lands after their own name. So we already know that's their inward thought, that they're going to be in total control, that they're going to be the majority, that they are going to constantly rule. And you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't have to pay for these crimes that they have done, you know what I'm saying, throughout history, you know, all the atrocities and all the blood that they have shed. You know, blood is on their hand. So one thing about it, you know what I'm saying, they're in for a rude awakening. And also they name their lands after themselves, you know. So, you know, that's exactly just like America. I can't just kind of escape me right now. The man, it was Amerigo Cephalus. You know, so he was an Italian explorer, which in fact he was an Edomite. You know, so this Bible is spot on. So it's inward thought that they would rule forever. So they want that total control and also make you a petrol slave. You know, that badge of servitude. That's why he's trying to make America white, trying to make America great again. All these things are vain. Why do the heathen rage and imagine a vain thing? Because what? The Lord is coming with great glory and great power to cut them off forever. They're getting ready to go back to their rightful place, which in fact is servitude under what? Yasharallah. You know what I'm saying? The prince of the power, which in fact is Israel. The Israel of the Most High, the Lord is coming back for first, the elect. And after that, the Lord is going to save all of Israel. And one thing about it, we already know that the 2/3 right now, they in bed with this wicked devil right now. But one thing about it, that we see that the Lord is doing a mighty work. The Lord has made them small among the nation, and they are very concerned. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, so this is a part of the plan all the time. And also I said, I got to make correction of what I said on about the gated community, the cities that they already they're made with restaurants and with stores and also schools for these peoples that's coming from South America. You know, this is all a part of the plan. You know what I'm saying? Like they were saying about these 15-minute cities, different things like that. So they already got it rolled out. They're not putting them into motel. And then you see how they said it, you know, something like motel. It's going to be better than motel. So let's go here to Jeremiah chapter 51. And let's start up at verse 7. Jeremiah chapter 51 and verse 7. No, verse 6, Salakia. And it reads, said, flee out of the midst of Babylon, and said, and deliver every man his own, his soul. Said, be not cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of the Lord's vengeance, and he will render unto her a recompense. So the Lord is getting ready to judge this place, Babylon the Great, America. You know, how do you flee out of the midst of Babylon? What? Spiritually, this wisdom, this knowledge, this gospel, you know, it will sustain you in times of trouble. Verse 7 said, Babylon has been a golden cup, a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations are the nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. So one thing about it, you know, it's talking about they have drunk off the wine, what the philosophy, the democracy, what the policy, you know what I'm saying? America has had a major influence throughout the world, you know what I'm saying? Over the entire world, the hammer of the whole earth. But now this place is what is constantly on the decline. This place is on the downfall. So you know, the people begin to see. Let's read this once again. It says in Jeremiah chapter 51 and verse 7 said, Babylon has been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken of the democracy, the policies, you know what I'm saying? The philosophy. Said the nation have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. Verse 8, it said, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain. If so be she may be here, but she will not be here. This place will fall and will never, ever get back up again. The Lord is going to destroy this place in 1 hour. Those IBCM missiles and also that laser and chariot fire from Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. Verse 9 said, we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go every one unto his own country, for their judgment reaches unto heaven, and it is lifted up even to the sky. So that's exactly what's happening right now. A lot of people beginning to see that this place is circling the drain. And a lot of people have said, we are getting ready to get out of here, out of this nightmare. And one thing about it, we waiting on our Lord and Savior to come to deliver us. So let's skip down to verse 12. Jeremiah chapter 51 at verse 12. It said, set up the standard upon the walls of Babylon, make the watch strong, set up the watchmen, prepare the ambushes, for the Lord has both devised and done that which he has spake against the inhabitants of Babylon. So the Lord is setting this up. The Lord is constantly bringing forth all these things upon Babylon the Great. We're seeing that you're bringing all these different migrants, these different people from these different countries. The Lord is setting it up. And one thing about these sleeper cells. You know what I'm saying? The Lord is constantly dismantling America, constantly getting ready to destroy this place. You know what I'm saying? We are very close. So my phone is about to go out. We might shut it down. We're gonna shut it down on verse 13. Verse 14, it said, O thou that dwellest upon many waters, abundance with treasures, thy end is come, and the measure of thy covenants. So the point is in verse 14. I had a few more precepts, but we won't shut it down because my phone about to go out. Salakia for that. It said, the Lord of hosts has sworn by himself, saying, surely I will fill thee with men as with caterpillars, and they shall lift up a shout against thee. So let's read this in the NLT, and we shut it down. It says here, verse 14 in the NLT, in the blue letter, it says, the Lord of heaven's army has taken this vow and has sworn to it by his own name. So your cities will be filled with enemies, and your cities will be filled with the enemies. So like fields swarming with locusts, and they will shout in triumph against you. So that's exactly what's happening. This place is constantly being filled up by the enemies. We seeing that left and right through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, and also we are not ignorant of Satan's devices. So the title of the day lesson, once again, is Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. So I like to give all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua Ba'ashem Rekah Kwadash. I like to say Shalom, Shalom, and Salakia for my battery being too low. Salakia for that.